All right, everybody, welcome to episode 114 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with the co-host with the most, Drew at DR underscore PRA. And we have a very special guest. Drew, I think this is the first time in our history that we've had both an addict and a junkie on
Oh
our
man,
podcast at the same time. I want to welcome Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict. Rocky, how you doing, man?
I guess that's me. Yeah, I'm doing good. I'm. Thanks for having me on. I love coming on this. I think to the point where I, at one point, invited myself onto your show one time. So it's one of my favorite pods to come on. Love talking to you guys. I love going back to when Bill was there. Then you brought a doctor on. It just raised the level even more. So
I mean, we had to step our game up. I mean, it was just me spouting nonsense, Bill trying to keep me under control. So I figured if we brought a doctor in, we could, we could maybe bring some legitimacy to this podcast. So,
oh my god.
Rocky, before we start this off, and while Drew tries to stop blushing, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you're doing, and where they can find you?
Yeah, I'm Rocky Petrella at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter. I do way too many podcasts. I'm on the Trade Addicts pod with Russ, Dynasty Outhouse, also on the DAP Network. Also on the DAP Network, Dynasty Junkies. I'll try not to drone on for 2 hours like those two losers you had last week, or who I happen to co-host with. And I also do a lot of the Dynasty game night shows now too. I host a bunch of them, so that's a lot of fun. Drew was on last week. Eventually, and
It was a
I don't think that's been
shameful
released
appearance.
yet, so we won't say how he did, but it was a fun show.
Shameful.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because Drew was talking to me about it before, and he's like, "Oh, like, what do you think I should know, and what do you think I should kind of bone up on?" And I said, "Listen, I'm the worst person to ask this question to because you guys play the name game on a lot of episodes, and my brain just doesn't work that way. I'm
Yes.
terrible at the name. I try to play
I always
along,
say that to people. It's like your brain either works that way or it doesn't. It's exactly what I say.
and I listen and I try to play along, and you just know when you have the people on that show that their brain does work like that because they get it right away. And I'm like, oh my, I would have been here for like 15 minutes trying to figure that out, and they get it in like 10 seconds. I'm just like, and we were talking about some things, and I said, yeah, just go out there and have fun. Who cares?
Yeah,
You know?
I know. I've mentioned to you about coming on before, and I know you're just like, no. I would totally suck on that show.
Listen, I would come on. I would just I would preface and I would tell everybody don't expect much out of me. I would go to have a good time, but winning it was probably not in my game plan.
I,
Sounds like
Kind
you
of like my
sandbagging
Dallas Cowboys.
Rocky.
I know. I think yeah, I'm gonna hold you to that. I'm gonna bring you on soon, Josh.
You
Even
bring
if you tank the name game, there's still 2 other games.
you bring me on. I just hope it's not an episode where you bring John Bosch out and the heavy hitters so that they completely grind me into dust. But yeah, so obviously if you listen to podcasts just in general, you probably have heard Rocky's voice. You've probably seen him if you're subscribing to the DAP Network YouTube because he's on Junkies. He's on Trade Addicts. Just I love having you on. I've handed out in the 114 episodes of this show probably a handful of open invitations. You got one of them because I love having you on. I love talking to you. We got to meet up earlier on in the
Yeah,
season, which was a
that
ton
was
of
great.
fun.
Yeah,
You and I, Russ was there, and
Shane,
Shane as well, and that was just so much fun.
got
So
to do that again.
oh, for sure, for sure. Thank God we didn't do it this weekend because you, you, Shane, and I would have been
I
very,
know,
very angry people by
crying
the
in our
end of that.
beers or screaming in our beers.
Oh yeah, yeah. I would have probably moved to shots by the midway point of that Cowboys game. So you know what? Let's get into the news and let's have a little fun with this thing here. So just a couple of quick points. We don't even have to talk about it too much. Houston fires David Cully from the head coaching position. Makes no sense to me. I mean, he actually got that team that had no talent to play and get a couple wins. I mean, they played New England tough. They played Tennessee tough. I mean, they didn't win those games, but those are games they probably should have lost by 3 touchdowns. And they were in those games the entire time. So, you know, we'll see what happens there. Nick Caserio, the GM, came out and said Deshaun Watson will probably not be playing in Houston. So, for all the people that thought maybe Brian Flores gets hired and Deshaun decides to stay around, it looks like Nick Caserio is saying, that's not going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see where Deshaun ends up. Maybe on your Eagles, Rocky. Who knows? I mean,
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Howie Roseman came out and said Hurts is the starter for 2022. We'll see if that's too true or a lie, but we got that going on. And the Las Vegas Raiders fire Mike Mayock. Man, I mean, God bless these people that have these cushy media jobs and then decide they want to get into GMing or coaching or doing any of this other stuff, because it just doesn't seem like it's a good career move. I mean, I feel like being the head draft guy at NFL Network probably pays a good amount of money, and you can just sit around and tell people what you think. And if you're wrong, who cares? You got another draft class to come in. If you're wrong in the NFL, they call it not for long, and this is the exact reason why.
Yeah, Mayock seemed a lot smarter when he was doing the draft coverage than he did as the GM.
And sometimes you just have guys. I mean, yeah, I'll bring it back to the Eagles again. Howie Roseman, started as a cap guy. He was a lawyer and a cap guy, and it's just sometimes you just have a certain skill set that works. And when you're a general manager, you have to be the cap guy. You got to be the pro personnel guy. You got to be the draft guy. You got to be all of that. And I wonder if Mike Mayock was just a very good draft guy and not good at all the other stuff. I mean, they brought in Antonio Brown, and we saw how that ended up. I mean, the drafts haven't been good either, even though there's conflicting reports about how much influence Mike Mayock actually had on draft picks. But, their first round picks are kind of laughable if you go through them from the last 3 years. And yeah, they drafted guys like Hunter Renfrow and Max Crosby, and that's great. But a lot of times you get evaluated on those first round picks unless the rest of your picks are really good and make up for the fact that you're bombing in the first round. So,
and they made some doozies of first round picks in recent years.
Oh man! And I'm a draft guy. I love the draft, and once the season's over, I really get into it. And it's just like Henry Ruggs over Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. Okay, like go ahead. That's one way to do it,
and not fantasy. Wasn't that Leatherwood? Wasn't he a first round pick last year?
Alex Leatherwood was a first round pick.
And everyone's wondering, like, what the hell?
Who was supposed to be a second round guy. And then they said, no, he's going to be our starting right tackle. Now he's their starting right guard. So they didn't even get his position correct after spending a top, I think, 20 pick on him. So, yeah, I mean, now, again, conflicting reports, some people are saying a lot of that was John Gruden and what he wanted. But again, if you're taking that GM job coming from NFL Network and you don't have the final say on that stuff, that's on you. So we'll see what happens in Vegas. Rich Bisaccia is still there as head coach. They haven't made a decision. I mean, that guy got that team to the playoffs and was like a non-errant Derek Carr pass away from winning that game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would count for a lot in my book, but obviously they're going to find a new GM, and I guess they're going to talk to the GM and see how they feel about Rich coming back for 2022. I think he should, but I just saw a report, and I don't know if you guys saw this, that apparently, which Harbaugh is it?
Jim Harbaugh?
Jim?
Yeah. said that he would take the Vegas job if it was offered to him.
Oh, I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, I just saw it like an hour ago. So, not sure if it's true, but we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, people have said stuff about Michigan, especially before this year, but he did pretty damn well with the Niners when he was there.
I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, he's shown that he can kind of build a team and do some things, and and I like this one from Dave, and I love Dave on Twitter as well. How about going from podcasting to GM? Well, listen, I couldn't do a worse job than like probably the bottom 5 GMs in the league.
Yeah, we're all better than David Gettleman, I think.
Oh my God.
Oh man, I could turn the Giants into like a solid 6-10 team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's better than what Dave Gettleman did. I mean, first things first. Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, man. We got one more year of you, and then you got to go somewhere else because playing quarterback is not what your life's purpose is supposed to be.
You just turned him to Taysom Hill for the last half of his career.
Like maybe draft a tight end that can actually catch the ball. I'm just saying. Yeah. Maybe get a new medical staff in there because everyone got injured this year. I mean, you're running with Jake Fromm. That's another thing I would do, by the way, is get a backup quarterback better than Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm.
That offense was a joke and you wouldn't think it's Daniel Jones, but I mean, it just shows how at least somewhat average Daniel Jones was because what they went to was just a joke.
New York Giants fans were praying to their God that Daniel Jones would come back.
Yes.
Like, think about that statement that I just said. It was so bad behind Daniel Jones that they were like, hey, can we get Daniel Jones back? I will do anything. I will give up a child. I will pay money.
Man.
Just bring Daniel. Like,
there's some bitterness going on right now. There's some anger and bitterness here.
I mean, I'm just saying I could do a better job than Dave Gettleman. That's all I'm saying. I'm not even angry about that. That's just a statement of fact.
Did you see that the Giants were talking to coaches before getting a GM as well somewhere today?
Yeah.
To talk about ass backward.
They're not smart. They're like listen, Mara family, you can hire me for half the price. I can give you at least the same results, if not better. I mean, I'm saving you guys money.
You probably get all 3 of us for half the price.
And the 3 of us combined can look at a team and go, Mike Glennon at backup quarterback doesn't sound like a good idea, guys. I mean,
and that guy keeps that guy in his neck keep hanging around. He's not good. Like, even as I don't want him starting. I don't want him starting a quarter for me. So why is this guy keep making even backup money? I don't get it.
But like let's. And it's funny. I said we weren't going to talk about this for a long time, but we're like on a good train of thought now, so I want to keep going with it. And thank you, Dave, by the way, for getting us here. Let's just think about the 3 teams that we root for here. We got a Philadelphia Eagles fan, a Dallas Cowboys fan, and a Buffalo Bills fan. We saw Jalen Hurts go down for a game. The man, the myth, the legend, Gardner Minshew comes out. Has a I don't want to say great game. Has a good game, gets a win.
Great for Goddard.
Cooper Rush. I'm shocked he's still in the league. But he comes out for a game, Dak is hurt, gets a win in prime time, gets a win. You, Drew, probably have the best, at least fantasy quarterback in the league. Maybe the best actual quarterback. Debatable, but we'll throw it out that he's in.
He won with Nagy. He got to the playoffs with Nagy.
Well, I'm talking about.
Oh, you're talking about the start. Yeah,
I'm talking about Josh Allen. I'm getting to the backup, but I'm talking about Josh Allen first because you didn't have to use the backup this year. Rocky and I had to watch a game of backup play. But if Josh Allen went down for a game, I don't think you would freak out and go, "Oh man, we have to play with Mitch Trubisky."
Plus, he's the perfect backup for Allen specifically because he's a mobile guy.
Wait a minute. Look at that. A GM said, hey, this is the type of starting quarterback we have. Why don't we get a backup quarterback that has some of the same talents that our starter has so that if our starter goes down, and we don't ever want that to happen,
Knock
we
on
have a
wood.
backup with starting experience, by the way, which I think is so
Me too.
crucial in most situations, is a QB with starting experience, a backup QB with starting experience. He could come out there and for a game, you're not like overly worried that like Mike Glennon is the guy that's your backup. Jake Fromm is the guy that's your backup. And the Giants looked at their depth chart and said, Mike Glennon will be fine. Like I can do better. I'm just saying I can do better than saying I think Mike Glennon. I would draft a guy in the 4th round and just go, this is going to be our backup. It could be a dumpster fire, but it's not Mike Glennon.
At least it's a rookie.
Yeah. Like your fan base would understand if a 4th rounder has to start a game or 3 and is awful. You're going to go, all right, guy was a day 3 pick. He's a rookie. Like you're looking at Mike Glennon, like we spent money for this. Like we paid money for this. That's pretty gross. All right, now I got that off my chest because yes, I do feel like I could go from podcasting to GMing at any time. So NFL, I know you're listening. Hit me up. I'm gonna bring these 2 guys with me though. So get ready for that package deal.
I'm ready.
Get ready to
do it.
Get ready to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on us to come and GM your team. But you know what? Let's do what we do, what we have the most fun doing, and talk about what we saw on the timeline. And actually, I'm going to say a quick apology here because this came in last week, and I totally missed putting it on the show sheet. So, Ridley Truther, I'm sorry, brother, but we're going to get to it this week. So this is from, like I said, Ridley Truther at CWC Wood 1. Yo, fellas, appreciate all yous do. Rocky and I know that dude is from Philly.
Philly, yep.
For sure. 100% help me contend this year with your content. Well, appreciate that, Ridley Truther. I mean, we just do the best we do. We try to have a lot of fun, but we do want to help people out. We do want to answer questions. We do want to talk about situations that in a lot of cases we're all going through. What about this trade? Should we be picking this guy up? Should we be leaving this guy alone? So I'm glad that we had even the smallest help with you doing well this year.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to Ridley Truther because he's a huge friend of the DAP network. He's in the Trade Addicts Patreon. I know he's been in the Junkies chat before. He's a huge fan of all the shows. Yep, he's been in the timeline chat. So love that guy.
By the way, I'll promote this real quick. The FTC, the Fantasy Timeline chat. If you just want to talk with a lot of good people about fantasy and other things, just hit myself, Drew, or the Timeline Twitter handle and just say, hey, get me in. Rocky's in there as well. We're always having a good time. I'm doing a startup right now, and I'm literally just kind of crowdsourcing it and seeing where we end up, which is kind of a fun thing I've always wanted to do. So, just hit us up. We'll get you right in. No questions asked. So, Really Truther is asking us, when looking at a 1 year out, and he puts in parentheses, hopefully contender, do you strictly look at roster weaknesses, or is it more of a case-by-case thing? Trying to decide if I should go all in on some old players. So this is an interesting question because if you're doing a dynasty thing right, you're doing this at the end of every season. You're looking at your rosters and you're going, is this a contender or am I rebuilding with this team? And if you look at the team and you honestly go, I'm a contender, I can get in the playoffs and I could possibly win a championship, then this is the offseason. And I say this whether we are talking about a rebuild or contender, the non-point scoring season. I'm saying that dirty offseason word.
I was thinking I didn't want to correct you, Josh.
Oh, you should have. You should have. The non-point scoring season. We're just looking for that value right now. We don't have to set lineups. We don't have to, we don't have to worry about, do I have 2 running backs? Do I have 3 wide receivers. So look out there. Obviously, your value is going to be more in getting players that are going to hopefully do well in 2022. You're not looking for picks. Um you're not looking for, young guys that maybe didn't hit last season. That's right. That's right, Dave. No off season. We're always working. We are always working if we're doing this dynasty thing the right way. But you're not looking at maybe rookies from last year that didn't hit. You're not looking at your Terrace Marshalls and all that kind of stuff. You're looking for more established players, but you also want to get that, you want to get those guys that have value. So I'm not necessarily looking at my weaknesses because let's just say, for example, you're weak at wide receiver. I'm not only hunting wide receiver. If someone is going to give me a good or fair deal on Travis Kelce, I don't care if maybe I have Mark Andrews. Why not both? Like, and that's the thing. Like, don't pass up opportunities to get good players on your contending team just because they don't fit into what you think is a perceived weakness. Because guess what? You could have had Hunter Renfro on your team last year, and Deontay Johnson, and maybe Brandon Cooks, and you might have said, "I'm a little weak at wide receiver." That I don't have like a real like big net. I don't have Stephon Diggs. I don't have Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams. Well, if you had those 3 guys this year, you probably did pretty well. So sometimes it's even hard to assess what our weaknesses are because, yeah, January of 2021, those 3 as your top 3 wide receivers, a lot of us would have perceived as a weakness. But as the season goes on, oh man, Hunter Renfro is turning into a wide receiver 1. Oh, Deontay is turning into a wide receiver 1. Brandon Cooks, which he does it every year, even though we hate him, this time of year, is a wide receiver 2. And that's another thing we have to do. We kind of have to like this one. I got to stop my own train of thought here. Didn't Drew win with those guys? I don't even know if Drew's guys were that good.
Yes, I did, Lindsay. Yes, I did.
But it's about finding that value. If somebody's going to give you, and I don't, I'm not of the I got to rip someone off in a trade camp. But if someone even offers you a fair deal for, a big name guy, or maybe you consolidate one of your big time guys into multiple assets to get yourself some depth. There's a lot of different ways to go around it. But Rocky, what do you think about this question? What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said a lot of it, but going back to what you said about, or what he said, I guess, about the roster weaknesses, that in season, I love to construct trades like that. Not only looking at my roster weaknesses, but specifically looking at my trade partners' roster weaknesses. I think that's a great way to go about it. But like you said it in the off season. I'm sorry, I did it now. Non-point scoring season. You got me doing it, Josh.
I'm sorry. It's contagious.
But yeah, in the non-point scoring season, it's all about value, but also value that can mean like if someone wants to get out on Adam Thielen for the 211 or something like that. I mean, you're in a position to do that. Depending on where your roster is. If you're a rebuilding team, you're obviously not going to do that, even if you think it's value, most likely, just because even if you think you can flip them for more, it's not going to be easy. So, especially until September hits. So, or going bigger, maybe someone's looking to get out on Hopkins or even Adams. Like, oh my God, he's going to be 29, and we all know that 29 and 30 are death for wide receivers. So, so yeah, I mean, you can get value with getting those older guys, but yeah, I go a lot more player centric than roster centric in the offseason. Like certain players that I think are being undervalued or overvalued by the market. That's the way you want to go, not necessarily targeting roster weaknesses.
100%. I'm looking at people that are scared of something coming up. They're predicting doom and gloom somewhere. Maybe somebody's thinking that Amon-Ra is really peaked and they're willing to get out for whatever they can in the second round at this point. Sure, I'll take that shot. If we're going like on the younger side, maybe guys that haven't had a high draft capital or something, they came out of nowhere, and all of Twitter's telling you there's a million reasons why it won't happen again or it won't continue. So that value is the key word. But yeah, kick the tires. This is a great time to be asking your league mates, what do you think about these players? I think that the more you know the folks around, hopefully people are pretty straightforward with each other. I think I started the game very much like a cloak and dagger. I don't want anybody to ever know what I'm really thinking, and that's going to give me the edge or whatever. But that just makes it really difficult to make anything happen later on. So I think most people, because there's so many different ways to build your team, especially in Dynasty, figure out who's going to have a different valuation from you, and you'll be surprised how that pendulum goes back and forth over time. And ultimately, you want to have some fun with it, right? I heard you guys talking about that on the Addicts the other night, Rocky. It's was it the TA3 winner threw in for the dispersal?
Yeah,
because
the only person that threw in for the dispersal was not only the winner, the back-to-back champ. He's won the last 2 years, and everyone else was like, I'll keep, including me, was like, yeah, I'll keep my team. And the champ said, yeah, I'll throw. And that's what he said. He showed us I forget if it was him or Russ, showed us the DM he sent to Russ, because as all dispersals, you should be keeping secret, if you're going to be in or not. Right. And he's like, yeah, I got in this league to have fun, so what the hell? Let's throw in on the dispersal. Yeah.
So ultimately have fun. And I think for most of us that are doing this all year round, active means fun. So find ways to stay active, find ways to keep things churning. And that's where you get to look back over the long term, right? If you get too hung up on the trade after trade, transaction pieces, you'll pull your hair out, go nuts, trying to figure out, did I win? Did I lose that trade? So have fun with it, find the value, help somebody else. Maybe they see something that you don't, you can learn from that.
Yeah, Drew, and I want to touch on one thing you brought up, which I thought was really good. You talked about, maybe buying in on some of the doom and gloom that are around players right now. But I think we can also do the opposite. And this is a Denver Broncos subtweet, if you will. Everyone just assumes, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, one of those guys is definitely going to end up in Denver. So Jerry Jeudy to the moon, Cortland Sutton to the moon, Noah Fant to the moon. Well, what if it's Gardner Minshew? What if it's somebody, what if Carolina...
No stash slander here, Josh.
Listen, I love him for a game. For 17, might be a little tougher to swallow. But what if it's not one of those big guys that everyone is just assuming is going to end up in Denver? Maybe now's the time you sell, and hey, listen, you pipe up a little bit. Aaron Rodgers to Jerry Jeudy. Oh, man, that'd be nice. And, we think about it, and this is back to your original point, Drew. Last season, Travis Etienne gets drafted by the Jaguars in the first round. James Robinson is dead. He's dead. He no longer lives on this earth. You could have had him for a sandwich and a bag of chips. You probably didn't even need the sandwich, but you felt generous. And Travis Etienne gets hurt. Boom. James Robinson, he just goes back to doing what he's doing. Now, this year, I don't know. I don't know what Travis Etienne's going to be. We know what James Robinson is, but we don't know who the new coach is right now, how they're going to feel. Do they want to be in a single back system, or are they going to want to split these guys? Maybe they want to turn Travis Etienne into mostly a pass catching back. Who knows? We don't know any of that yet. But if you bought on that dip, if you bought in all the depression, all of a sudden you gave away probably nothing and got yourself a running back one. I'm assuming he finished the season. Maybe high end running back 2 at the worst.
I think it was a 2 just because of the injury.
Yeah.
The
points per game probably close to a 1 though.
Yeah, points per game. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's things you have to look at too. Is almost kind of trying to predict the future, and that's not easy. But kind of just saying, all right, and I was a person that was saying, hey, they're going to bring in help for James Robinson. And a lot of people did not agree with me on that statement. And they did, even though it didn't work out for him, like most things in Jacksonville didn't work out. But, so I think all three of us are saying the same thing, Ridley. Just,
One thing I wanted to add real quick that I thought of after I finished up was just I mentioned the thing about liking to target my trade partners' weaknesses, and I said in season, but I also, especially if you're in a league where it's not necessarily if not super sharp like bunch of podcasters and writers and fantasy analysts and all this stuff. If you're just in a league with a group of friends, I still like to try and do that in the non-point scoring season because not everyone thinks the way we're talking right now. I think a lot of people still do look at that and go, "Oh man, I only my running back 2 is horrible. I need to get a running back even in like February." So I think it's still worth trying to do that during this time, even if you shouldn't be doing it for yourself. In terms of throwing offers out there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing. And, Dave said in the chat, he said, at me, Rocky, at me. But he said being active is so important. And it's the truth, man. It's the people that are out there sending offers and talking with their league mates that are finding this stuff. Because guess what? If you were in a league with me last year, you knew that I was low on James Robinson just because I thought the help was going to come in. I thought another running back was going to come in and dilute his touches. So you would know right there and there, hey, I'm not going to try to trade this guy, James Robinson. But if you don't listen to my podcast, reaching out and just saying, hey man, what do you think about James Robinson? Are you willing to make a trade? I would just tell you straight up, hey man, I'm not really high on James Robinson. Like, I'll send you, I'll send you a low second if that's what you want to do. But, and at least you're gauging people's interest in players and you're figuring out, okay, Josh doesn't really like him, but Rocky likes him a lot more than Josh does. Rocky's a guy that I want to try to make this trade with. And, there's going to be a guy that I'm higher on than Rocky. And then that same guy can turn around and go, okay, this guy over here, I know you're higher than Rocky. Let's try to make a trade for this guy. So it's important to kind of, reach out, and you don't have to talk to everybody, but send offers. Hey man, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And see what you can get done. So next one here is from Ron Stewart at Ron Stewart _. He said, y'all mind if I rank T. Higgins over CD Lamb in these dynasty ranks? And I saw this and I said, ooh, somebody woke up and they chose violence. So, Drew, why don't we start with you? What do you think about that in the dynasty ranks?
I don't mind. I don't mind. I don't think I don't think I would be bold enough to do that myself. I think CeeDee Lamb is still so talented in a high-powered offense that it would be tough for me to make that kind of a straight-up trade. But if you want to put together a package where you think, if you have Lamb and you like T. Higgins that much and you can get a nice piece on top with him, I'm not opposed to making that trade. Again, that goes back to that value piece, right? If somebody else is looking at CeeDee Lamb as still a top 5 dynasty receiver, which I think is in the range of outcomes. I don't know where I place him at this point, but if somebody else is going to value him that way and you've got T. Higgins maybe in the top 5 yourself, go for it. I think I'm always a fan to go get your guy as well. So if you really have somebody that you think is going to be good for your team and you enjoy watching him, I'm all for making that move. But I don't think personally I'm there where I've got T. Higgins above CeeDee Lamb yet in dynasty rankings.
All right, Rocky, where are you at on this one?
Yeah, and I don't know that I have him above, but I think I have him a lot closer than some people. I was kind of glad when I saw this question because I'd actually heard this before that their stats through 2 years were pretty close. And this is the one bit of research I did, Josh. I don't do research for my own podcast, but I did it for yours.
I like it.
I have it up here. He's played 2 less games than CD. He's got 12 less receptions on only 13 less targets in 2 years. He's got 38 less yards and 1 more touchdown than CeeDee Lamb in 2 years. So, I mean, their stats are almost virtually identical. It's crazy. Even if you go year by year, if you look at the 2 years separately, they're still super close. So, uh, I, and I think the reason we have Lamb higher is we're all holding on to our original prospect profile on him. He was definitely considered a much better maybe not much better, but a better prospect than T was. And the other reason I think is Jamar Chase. We're all assuming CD's, if not already, going to be the clear alpha in Dallas. He's got Amari there now, but I think he may have already kind of assumed that wide receiver one role. But everyone thinks, there's no way T. Higgins is ever going to be the wide receiver one for his own team, since Chase is a rookie and going to be there for years and years. So I think that's it. But the production's been similar through 2 years, and I think he can keep producing with Chase. And I want to see CD escalate before I would not put him in my top 5 right now. I don't think CD. I don't have a ranking, so I can't tell you who exact. I mean, obviously Chase and Jefferson would be above him, but I can't do it. I mean, he hasn't proven it yet. He's up there, but he's not that. Like, to me, both of them are low end wide receiver ones value wise.
So it's funny, Rocky, because you and I did the same research. So I'm not going to steal any of that thunder, but I'm currently doing a startup. Yes, I am a degenerate. CeeDee Lamb comes in at the 208. So in a startup, 8th pick in the 2nd round. This is a 14-team super flex league. Tight end premium. T. Higgins comes in at the 314. So pretty much a round and a half later, you can get T. Higgins for, as Rocky so eloquently explained, pretty much the same production. Talking about 3 or 4 points maybe over the last couple years if you average it out. CeeDee Lamb was the 3rd wide receiver taken.
Yep.
He only went behind Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, which it's funny. We talked about that last week, and I've seen a million Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson tweets since then. So I'm glad we started a little revolution on Twitter there. But yeah, like, listen, I'm a Cowboys fan. I love CeeDee Lamb. And people know this about me and have tried to take advantage of me with their CeeDee Lamb trades. I'm not going to fall for it because I watch every Cowboys game. I watch CeeDee Lamb play. He is amazing. But the Dallas offense, Dak Prescott loves to spread the ball. Cedric Wilson is getting them receptions. Dalton Schultz is getting them receptions. Amari Cooper, who, by the way, I'm going to say it right now, he's going to be on that team in 2022. Everyone goes, they can cut him and there's no cap hit. And listen, Michael Gallup, Cedric Wilson, Dalton Schultz are all free agents. Dallas's cap situation, not very good. They're not going to cut the only other guy besides CeeDee Lamb that's been a proven pass catcher. They're not going to do it. Just doesn't make sense for them. I think they're going to try to make a play at Schultz, but his market might dictate that it's too much. So those are going to be the 2 guys. But Dak likes to spread the ball around. Zeke is going to get receptions. Tony Pollard's going to get receptions. Blake Jarwin's even going to get his 2 receptions a game. There's so many weapons on that team that I don't think it's ever going to be this. It's CeeDee Lamb with, 160 targets, and he's going to get, 95 receptions and 1,300. It's not going to happen. Not the way this team is currently constructed. Maybe if Kellen Moore gets a head coaching job somewhere, maybe they bring someone else in and completely change it up. But right now, the way things are constructed, I love CD, but wide receiver 3, I wouldn't do it in a startup. I didn't do it in a startup. Actually, I have no wide receivers as of right now. So that just shows you where I'm at on wide receiver because I feel like there are so many good ones. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm looking at guys that have gone after CD Lamb, Tyreek Hill after CD Lamb, and this is just one startup. I'm not saying this is how it's going to be everywhere. AJ Brown after CD Lamb, Jalen Waddle, Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf. Like we can tell very easy stories about how all of those wide receivers score more points next year than CD Lamb. I mean, we can. It's not very hard to say Tyreek Hill will outscore CD Lamb on a Chiefs offense that looks like they figured it out. I mean, it's not a hard story to tell that he scores more points than CD Lamb. So, um, that's kind of how I feel about it with CD Lamb and T Higgins. I mean, honestly, this is a time to say, hey, I got CD Lamb. Can I get T Higgins and a late first? Can I get T Higgins? And I know I'm about to speak blasphemy out here. T Higgins in one of those 2023 firsts. I know nobody gives those up. We're not giving those up. You can't have them. But, maybe if you find somebody who would take CeeDee Lamb as their third wide receiver in a startup, maybe that's not a price too far. So, yeah, I mean, when I initially read it, I said, CeeDee Lamb is really good, but I know T Higgins is really good too, but I would probably still, and then once I researched the stats like you did, Rocky, I was like,
and I think there's this perception that CD's outdone him statistically, but
yeah,
it's not even that close, let alone as close as it is. And it's like their stats are almost identical, especially if you prorate T's out over to the amount of games, the extra 2 games that CD has. It's got to be about identical.
yeah. So, you know, and this is why it's important to look at these things, even if you look at them on their face and go, that's ridiculous. T Higgins over CD Lamb, that's ridiculous. Look a little deeper. And I did because I said, nah, man, it would be CD Lamb for me. And I think if I was doing rankings, I would still have CD Lamb over T Higgins. But once you look at those stats, maybe there's a trade opportunity.
Yeah, it's a front end of a tier versus back end of a tier.
Yeah, and I don't know for sure if it's 2 years in, but there's definitely got to be a point too where NFL production has to take over, their talent, so to speak, that we assume. And like I said, I pointed to the idea of them being a better prospect. I actually looked it up. He only went a half a round later than CD did. So I mean, at least according to the NFL, they're not that far apart. So in terms of talent, in terms of prospect profile, so
yeah, there are probably only 2 or 3 wide receivers drafted that separated those 2 players. I mean, I know Rager and Justin Jefferson.
Was the immortal Jalen Rager. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you look at T Higgins.
Thanks for bringing that up, Josh.
Hey, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
The guy won a championship with Clemson. I mean, the guy knows how to win. So I was excited to see him go with Burrow. So a couple of national champs with a winning mentality, and it's paying off for the Bengals, and it's so exciting. They're coming to town this weekend, and I don't like the Titans in general, but I really hope that the Bengals have a great game this weekend, and everybody that makes a trip down from Cincinnati gets the payoff. So I'm excited for that franchise.
Yeah, and if you look at it too, I mean, Jamar Chase is the clear number 1 on the Bengals.
Cincinnati Bengals.
But I mean, that just means that your defense is not focusing as much on T Higgins, who is a really good wide receiver. Cool, thank you. Don't focus as much on T Higgins because Jamar Chase is running wild. And I don't know if the same can be said about CeeDee Lamb. I don't know if defenses go, we have to focus the majority of our efforts on stopping Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, I think, is a very good wide receiver, but I don't think defenses go into it saying, this is where we have to focus our attention. I think CeeDee Lamb gets a lot of that, whether it's warranted or not warranted. And, you know, that I like that as well from just kind of a, you know, concept standpoint, just saying, okay, well, I got a very good number two versus it could be a 50-50 number one, so um hey, listen, Ron, none of us mind. You do you, because you know what? If you're right, you're right. And no one, people will only come after you if you're wrong. We all know that. When you're wrong, that's when people come after you. Because you know what? A couple years ago, when I said that Justin Jefferson was the wide receiver 2 in that draft class, people came after me. And then Justin Jefferson had his season. It wasn't nobody patting me on the back. No, nobody said, you had it. I mean, honestly, I was wrong because he was the wide receiver 1 in that class, apparently. But at the time, people were talking to me about Jalen Reagor, who I never liked.
Jerry Jeudy.
Jerry Jeudy. What do you mean? He's not better than Jerry Jeudy. I watched him play. And people smarter than me were saying the same thing. So I was just happy that smarter people agreed with me. But yeah, I mean, do you, man? Because if you're right, you'll hear a whole lot of silence, and silence is golden. So we're gonna jump. I'm gonna jump a little bit here to actually the bottom of the show sheet because I want to get this question in. And Rocky, this is from one of your future guests on the Junkies.
And it is.
Heath Cummings, he big time us. I reached out to him a couple times and asked him to come on, and Drew asked him to come on. He big timed us. He said he didn't want no part of this. Actually, he just never answered. But
what the hell's up with that? I'll have to kick him off the show. Sorry about that, Josh.
That's all right. That's fine. That's fine. You keep Heath. I mean, we got you. I feel like it's a fair deal.
Yeah, totally even. Yeah.
So this is from Heath Cummings at Heath Cummings SSR. Or Heath Cummings SR, sorry. I mean, you know who Heath Cummings is. Let me read it. Which back do you prefer in a full PPR Dynasty league? DeAndre Swift at 23 years old, CMC at 25 years old, Javonte Williams at 21 years old. And I was actually shocked when I saw that DeAndre Swift was only 2 years younger than CMC, because I feel like CMC should be 30 by now. So, yeah. So Rocky, why don't you start us off? Who do you like? PPR Dynasty, is it DeAndre Swift, Christian McCaffrey, or Javonte Williams?
Yeah, I threw this one on here. I thought it was really interesting with those three. For me, it's definitely not CMC. I've been lower on him than most. I keep hearing this thing, well, he's been hurt, these last 2 years, but he scores 30 every time he's in the lineup. And people just act like he's going to continue to score 30 points every time he's in the lineup. I think any coach would be nuts to give him the workload that he has gotten, previous to now, after he's played like 8 games in the last 2 years. So I don't think we're going to see 30. I mean, he's going to be a great player. Probably he's going to be very good, but they could still have garbage at quarterback too. We don't know that they're going to get any of these guys that are supposedly going to be out. Supposedly going to be out there this offseason. I know there's been some rumblings about maybe getting Watson or something like that. So if they did, I would like it a little more, like CMC a little more. But I think we're going to see him settle more into like a mid to low end RB1, that he's going to be like almost like an Austin Eckler. Like he could be, in the right, everything breaks right. He could be in the top of the running back rankings, but he's going to be way more pass heavy than he's been in the past. And prior to this year, Austin Eckler wasn't scoring these kind of touchdowns either. I don't know that we're necessarily going to see the kind of touchdowns we've seen from CMC in the past. So that he's ruled out for me, and obviously the age thing. So he's older than these other two, and I don't expect the production to continue the way most people, like I said, most people I hear talking or tweeting about it just seem to think, oh, he's just going to be 30-point CMC next year too. I don't see it, but so then it comes down to the other two, and that was really tough for me, which it apparently wasn't as tough for Twitter. They're a decent amount apart in the percentages, but I lean Swift still. I know the offense is not good, but it's got nowhere to go but up. And he was producing as an RB1 this year with that offense when he was healthy. So I just think as long as he, and that has been an issue for him this first 2 years, staying healthy, but as long as he can stay healthy, I just think his ceiling, it could be RB1. I mean, he could be, if, and he did not run the ball great with Detroit, which some people you might want to blame on Detroit. I think a lot of it is a little more him because their offensive line is actually pretty good for a bad team. So he needs to improve, I guess, in that area. But he's just so elite in the passing game. He could be an Eckler light or a CMC light going forward. So I love Javonte, but we don't know for sure that he's gonna have Melvin Gordon definitely out of there next year. Everyone wants to assume he is, but I wouldn't be shocked if they brought him back. Or maybe they decide Javonte isn't a 3-down back and they bring in somebody else like a Gordon, but just not Melvin Gordon himself. So if they get the quarterback, I might be willing to push Javonte. You know, we're all hoping they get Rodgers or somebody like that. If they do that, I might be willing to push him up. But right now, I'm going to stick with Swift.
All right, Drew. Is it Swift, McCaffrey, or Javonte Williams?
I'm with Twitter on this one, and in the season that we're in, I'll take the value of Javonte with the youth. If I need to hold him for a season or two, I can. If somebody is willing to give me one of these monster offers because they think they need to get on the Javonte train now, I will absolutely take the value I can get for him. I'd be curious to see in the DLF trade finder what people are getting for each of these running backs in their leagues. I feel like from what I've seen on Twitter, there are some folks out there willing to give, a little bit shy of what people are giving for JT at some points for Javonte after what they've seen this back half of the season. So I would take Javonte for the youth. And if I'm stuck with him for a couple of years, great. I am all about getting out on running backs sooner than later. So if you're not getting the offer you love for Swift this year, then hopefully he's a part of your long-term plan.
I like that. I like that. So I'm going to preface this by saying I may be a little biased here. In that same startup that I spoke about earlier, I took Javonte Williams as the third running back off the board. So the only two that went ahead of him were JT and Najee. And I took Javonte late first round. I'm worried about the injury history of the other two guys. And we've learned this year, and jokes have been made, but a guy like Ezekiel Elliott ends up as RB6. Why? Because he played the whole season. You know, we see these guys every year. Are they good? Yeah. Are they elite? Definitely not. But they've stayed healthy for 15, 16, 17 games. And that's vital out of your running back position is a guy that you're like, hey, I can plug him in. And listen, maybe Javonte only stayed healthy because Melvin Gordon was there taking 50% of the touches. I disagree with Rocky. I don't think Melvin Gordon's coming back. I think they're going to try to use the Melvin Gordon money to pay a quarterback. But they could use a third or fourth round pick on a running back to bring in to, help make that backfield, kind of what we saw with Melvin Gordon this year. Or they bring in a lower priced vet. I don't know what like Raheem Mostert's contract status is, but maybe, you bring in a Raheem Mostert or a guy like along those lines that's like, yeah, we've seen him do it in the league, but he's not a threat to completely kick Javonte to the curb. And like I said, this is his rookie year. I mean, this guy's just learning the NFL and was an RB2 in pretty much a 50-50 timeshare. Like, man, year two, even if it's another 50-50 timeshare, I mean, you gotta figure, creep up a couple spots from. I think he was RB 16 this year, if I remember correctly. So, um, you know, I'm with you, Drew. I'm with Twitter. I like Javonte here, and it was 38% for Javonte, 29% for DeAndre Swift, and 28% for CMC, and then there was, C results was 5%. But I think it's interesting that Swift with a percentage point lead over Christian McCaffrey. I don't know if I would do that. Like it, that would be a close one for me, but I think I would still go with CMC because I just know that man when he's healthy, he is more than elite.
So would you give me Swift in a second for my CMC?
Oh, I'm not. I'm talking about startup. I'm not trading you for CMC. I'm talking about a startup, man. I'm not trading you for CMC. But
well, I'll take the spot after Josh then in that draft.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Honestly, you can take the spot after me because I'm taking Javonte anyway. So you can have you can have the spot after me.
I mean, the spot before Josh.
But yeah, that's so interesting to see that part of it. It's only 1%, so whatever. But that was actually more interesting to see than the fact that Javonte won. Because right now, yeah, and you guys can tell me I'm wrong if you think I am, but it seems like at least on Twitter, Javonte is God. The only person behind, or excuse me, the only person ahead of Javonte is JT.
JT, yeah.
So I'm not surprised by that poll.
But, I agree, though. I was surprised too by Swift over CMC because, like I said, I feel like I'm lower on him than most. I feel like most think he's going to come back next year, be same CMC he's always been, and I was surprised Swift finished even 1 percentage point ahead of him.
Yeah, because if you look at both guys, CMC is 2 years older than Swift, but you're still talking about two guys that have been dealing with injuries for the last couple of years, and we've seen both of these guys healthy, and Swift is very good, but Christian McCaffrey is a whole nother level. He's above everyone if he's healthy. He's 30 points a game. So,
but he could be getting more Swift-like usage.
He could. I think that would be assuming that Carolina brings someone in, because if it's Christian McCaffrey and Chuba Hubbard again, Chuba Hubbard he ain't that guy. Like,
but I'm not even sure I want Christian McCaffrey getting the touches he got before. Like I said, given what we've seen the last 2 years, though. So,
and I agree with that 100%. That's the reason why he is constantly ending up injured, is because it's the NFL, man. You're giving a guy 30 touches a game. You're asking him to get into a car accident 30 times a game, and eventually your body just goes, I can't do this anymore.
And even if it's not an overusage thing, like just carrying it, you're not carrying it, but touching it 30 times a game, you're just increasing your chances that some freak thing happens, like when Saquon steps on some guy's ankle and hurts his own, or steps on some guy's leg and hurts his own ankle. So, yeah.
And I want to shout out Dave here, because I know Lindsay's also in the chat. So say, hey, now Chuba's a Canadian, so that means he's incredible. He is Canadian. I will agree with you on that. And that's where the sentence ends. He is Canadian, yes. And shout out to all of our Canadian listeners. We have a lot, and that was the one thing that surprised me when I kind of started looking at like where people listen to us. I was like, man, we're big in Canada for some reason. But hey, I love Canada. I've only been there once, but I love it. So anytime any of our Canadian listeners want to invite me up, I'll be there. All right, let's move to this next one here from a fellow Cowboys fan. So we know this is going to be a good question. Kevin at the boys _22. Who would you rather have in Dynasty? Jalen Hurts or Mac Jones? Rocky, I told you about it in the Cool Kid chat. We were going to talk about this. We were going to get you talking about Jalen Hurts, but we're going to leave you last so that you
Okay.
can give us all the good info on Jalen Hurts. Drew, why don't you start us off? Is it Jalen Hurts or is it Mac Jones?
Ooh.
Drew's hurt by this question.
I can answer happily after this past weekend that it's Mac Jones for me. I want the guy that I feel like has longer runway here. Again, the context is so important. I've got a team with Hurts on it in the Superflex Army that made it to the championship, and I'm hoping that Hurts gives me a chance to run it back again next year. But ultimately, long term, I think Belichick got the guy to run his system. He's not going to be prolific. He's not going to have too many big games or weeks where he's going to be, flirting with the QB1 that week. But if I can have him as my QB2 or better yet, my QB3, I am just fine with that. I think he's in line to maybe take the mantle from Kirk Cousins in a few years as being that underrated guy who's going to go out and not only be good at real football, but help your team win a few weeks here and there, maybe when you have buys or injuries come up. So I will take the risk-averse route when it comes to my quarterback in most cases, unless I just happen to have a full stable of guys where I want to take a flyer on a huge upside swing. So between those two, straight up, I'll take the guy that I think has a longer future in the NFL as a starter.
So this is interesting. I love having like a draft board to look at and kind of, because obviously things are going to change over the next months, and who knows, they trade for Deshaun Watson and Jalen Hurts is wherever. But right now, Jalen Hurts in a 14-team Superflex comes off the board at QB 10, 204. Mac Jones, 310. So people say, give me a round and a half before I'm even sniffing Mac Jones. And we have, let's see, 2, 3, 4. So he was QB 15 in that same draft. But I said in the chat we all had it. Today was going to be fun because there were going to be no ties. There's only 3 of us. Last week there were 4 of us. Too many ties. We split down the middle. We weren't helping anybody. But I'm with you, Drew. I think it's Mac Jones, man. Listen, we all love Jalen Hurts. Why do we love Jalen Hurts? Because we play fantasy. All that rushing, over 700 yards rushing, 10 rushing touchdowns. Oh my goodness. It's so nice when you just have him and you look at all the points. He could throw for 143 yards. Who cares? He had 2 rushing touchdowns at 75, 80, 90 yards rushing. Great. But kind of to be relevant in fantasy football, you got to be on the field in real football. And listen, Eagles had a hell of a year this year. I think they exceeded most people's expectations. They got a wild card spot. They won 9 games. But can they consistently win by Jalen Hurts having a lot of 175, 200, 220-yard passing games? I don't think so. I don't think it's sustainable, if I can spit that word out, in the NFL. So what does that mean? Does that mean he has a year left, 2 years left? I don't know. And that worries me. Mac Jones, that dude's there as long as Bill Belichick's there. And I think Bill Belichick and Tom Brady made the same deal where they're going to outlive everybody and they're just going to keep doing what they do to the end of time. So, Mac Jones is going to be there for 4 more years because he runs Bill Belichick's system exactly the way Bill wants it run. And listen, we're talking about draft stuff. Where some of these prospects going to go? A lot of draft people are mocking a wide receiver to the Patriots in the first round. And I know We're all going to get our N'Keal Harry flashbacks, the PTSD from Harry going on. But, I think they're going to try to get Mac better weapons than Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne and, the very okay weapons they had there. So I'm going with Mac Jones as well. That's where I'm going. But before we get to Rocky, I want to put this up here real quick. This is from another great Canadian, Steve Dennis. To get Hurts on your roster, are you giving up a 2022 107? Now I'm going to assume this is Superflex. Drew, what do you think? Are you giving up the 107 to get Hurts?
If it's somebody else's 107, because I'm sitting on like the 111 or 112 as well, and that's what's going to put me over this year, sure. Long term, if that's my only first round pick, I don't think so. I think you can get another shot at another quarterback that might have more run this year. What's the kid's name? Is it Willis from Liberty?
Malik Willis.
Malik Willis, who he might be there in the back half of that first round, depending on where he lands, and he could be another maybe better version of Jalen Hurts, depending on how he does on his pro day or the combine here and stuff. So probably not, unless again it's somebody else's 107 that I'm going to add to really give my team a lift this year.
I would definitely give up the 107. I mean, if we're looking at how rookie drafts are breaking down right now, I mean, yeah, things are going to change over the next couple of months. Guys are going to rise, guys are going to get injured, all that stuff. But if we're looking at where things are breaking down right now, in a super flex, I'll give the 107. If that's my pick, I have to feel like Jalen Hurts is going to bump me up probably a couple spots, because he's probably going to end up being my QB2 unless I really just messed up at quarterback. And then at that point, I probably really need a quarterback if Jalen Hurts is my QB1. So, yeah, I'm doing that. I don't think there are any quarterbacks in this year's draft that are going to be on that level in 2022. And if I'm the 107, I'm assuming this is a 12-team league. I was in the playoffs. So I'm just bolstering a playoff team with a very good. I mean, he ended the season at QB8, QB9. So I'm bolstering my team with a guy that has the ability to be a top 10 quarterback. So yeah, I do that. You can have that 107. You take, whatever you want to take with 107. I hope it works out for you. But what do you think, Rocky? Are you giving up the 107 for Hurts?
Oh yeah, a quarterback, and we know I don't value quarterback necessarily as highly as everyone else. If I can get a quarterback for a single second half first who finished as QB8, at least in trade addict scoring that I'm looking at right now, I'm doing that all day. I don't care if it's only 1 year. And I guess to that point, and I want to preface this by saying I'm generally more negative on Eagles than consensus, but to me, you guys are nuts. This is so easily Hurts to me. It's not even funny. Hurts versus Mac Jones. I just, again, he was QB8 and he passed for over 200 yards 6 times all year. And I know what you're saying, Josh, about the NFL thing, and that could be a sign that he's not going to last in the NFL. Blah, blah, blah. I don't even care if I only get 1 year out of him. I'm still taking over Mac Jones. That's basically all you're getting definitely out of Mac Jones is the security, because Mac Jones is starting for another 3-4 years at least. One other thing I wanted to mention too, because I looked it up while you were talking, is Jalen Hurts, born August 7th, 1998, so he's only 23 years old.
Oh God.
Who was born 2 months earlier? Kenny Pickett, who's coming out in this year's draft. So this is a guy he came into the league very young. He was a 21-year-old when he came into the league. It's not impossible, even going into his third. I mean, we saw, I'm not comparing him to this guy, but we saw what Josh Allen did after 2 years in the league.
Whoa.
I am not comparing him to Josh Allen. I'm just saying a person can improve. I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Allen. I want to say that for the 5th time. I'm saying a quarterback, especially a 23-year-old quarterback, can improve as a passer after 2 years in the league. So I don't think this is necessarily what Hurts is as a passer, but he did this with the limitations he has. And I think it's it's definitely a little more negative after this past game, but I don't think that erases what he did all year in terms of real life football. He was improving over the second half. That was maybe literally his worst game. Like, I know I've obviously watched him every game. That might have been his worst game of the entire season.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah. So he regressed a lot in that game, but I still think there's room to grow. He's got the rushing upside. And I did not say Hurts equal Allen, Steve. Jesus.
That's quite the 180. Hurts equals Allen. Wow.
I'm just saying.
I feel like there's a bet to be had here.
Yeah, there is not a bet to be had. I was just using Allen to make a point. Everyone said Allen was inaccurate. Allen can't throw. It's Hurts can improve as a passer, not to the point of Allen, but better than he is now, which will keep him in the league longer, keep him as a starter longer, and he'll still be racking up those points with his legs. That's another thing, too, is he wasn't racking up as many points with his legs in the second half of the season because he had an ankle injury that had him in a walking boot after the playoff game, and he still finished QB8. I mean, I'll take 1 or 2 years of top 8 production over Mac Jones's high-end QB2 ceiling of Kirk Cousins. He's not Kirk Cousins yet. His ceiling is Kirk Cousins, which I love Kirk Cousins, but Jalen Hurts' ceiling is like up here and Kirk's down here.
Well, wait a minute.
Fantasy ceiling.
Rocky, I want to bring something up here. And by the way, I agree with everything you say. But if we can say that Jalen Hurts might get better, don't we have to say the same thing about Mac Jones?
Yeah,
a rookie. He was a rookie this year.
Yes, and that's what I was saying. His ceiling, he can improve to the point where he's Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, as much as I love him, the reason I love him is because I can pay cheap and get low-end QB1 production. Jalen Hurts was QB8, and I think there's upside for more if he can improve as a passer, which, yes, that's a big if. But if he does, he'll last longer and he'll score even more points.
He's not Josh Allen.
I will say.
He is not Josh Allen. I never said he was Josh Allen. This is going to become Bill and Trey Sermon. I know it.
We're like I said earlier, we're big in Canada. We have a lot of our fellow Canadians in the chat right now. I think you may have just shut down Canada with the Jalen Hurts equals Josh Allen. They may not even have power or internet anymore after that state. You may have just shut it all down. But I do want to put this up here because Lindsay, anytime that I can bring up the fact that I was so right about Trey Sermon, I'm gonna do it. Bill, I know you're listening. Trey Sermon, come on. And guess what? I'm gonna find the guy who goes at the back end of the 2022 draft that's a running back that we all love because he got drafted to some spot that's supposed to be super awesome, and he's not a good player. And I'm going to bash that guy too. And everyone's going to say I'm wrong about him because he's in like some magical spot that like running backs always, do well. And I'll be right about that too. But, thank you, Lindsay, for bringing up Trey Sermon because that was that was a highlight of that's going to be like Drew's love for Tua this year. That's going to bite him in the behind.
Now I know how Bill felt. I even prefaced that statement with, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts is going to be Josh Allen. And now it's become Jalen Hurts is Josh Allen.
The lights in his house were just flickering after you said Jalen Hurts is equal
we won't stand
to
for
Josh
it, Dave.
Allen. He had little brown out, little flickering lights after that one. So, oh man, but no, you make a lot of good points. Besides Jalen Hurts being Josh Allen, you made a lot of good points. So you know what? Let's do one more real quick on our way out, and this one is from friend of the show, Jake Trowbridge at Jake Trowbridge. Laviska Shenault is the only pass catcher with at least 100 targets to not score a single touchdown. In case you want another reason to hate Urban Meyer, and you do. First of all, Jake, I don't need no more reasons to hate Urban Meyer. I hated him with all of my soul the second he didn't fly back with his team after the loss in Cincinnati. All the hatred was there. You can't increase my amount of hatred for Urban Meyer. So,
We
but
need a
it's
song if there isn't one, Jake. We need a song.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I would love a Jake song about Urban Meyer. That would be fantastic.
Oh man.
Special request from the timeline.
But let's put this out there. What do we think about Laviska Shenault in 2022? Because that's actually a really interesting stat. That 100 targets, no touchdowns. Like I feel like that's impossible to do, but somehow it was done. You have to assume that there is going to be a competent head coach in Jacksonville in 2022. The names that have been thrown out there so far, everyone has coaching NFL coaching experience
because of their history of great coaching hires, Josh.
Listen, I'm
The bar is very low.
I'm just saying that they're at least interviewing people with NFL coaching experience. Listen, hey, they interviewed your guy, Super Bowl winning coach Doug Peterson.
Oh, I hope for Doug's sake he does not go there.
But you
He's
know
got
what?
the visor already, though.
He does have that.
I think Doug could do good work there. I mean,
it does have T-Law at least.
We saw the best and maybe also the worst of Carson Wentz while Doug Peterson was the head coach. Now you can say that was because Frank Wright was the offensive coordinator and QB coach was but he also showed that he could hire guys that can make somebody better too. So I think that would be a good point. But their list of guys is like a mile long. I feel like every coaching hire, Denver has like 1 million guys they've interviewed. Minnesota has interviewed like 8 or 9 guys already. So, but if we get a competent head coach in Jacksonville, what do we think about Laviska Shenault?
I'm with Dave in the chat. I rooting for him, but I'm out. Yeah,
Wow.
I just 2 years is enough. He's done next to nothing in these 2 years, and guys like that, maybe occasionally they pop up, but you're betting against long odds that someone who hasn't really produced in 2 years is gonna be a significant fantasy contributor. So. And like I said, I don't know that I'm as confident that they will have a legitimate head coach as you are, given some of their past head coaches. Other than I can't think of a good coach they've had other than Tom Coughlin, years and years ago. So, yeah, I don't see. I just don't see it. I think they're probably going to overhaul that whole wide receiver room anyway. I mean, I'm sure Laviska's not going to get cut or anything, but I could see a scenario where. He's maybe even lower down the pecking order than he was this year. So I'm out.
I will say DJ Chark is a free agent, and
that is true.
I don't think he comes back. I don't think they want him back. I don't know the status of Marvin Jones' contract. I don't know if I think he's still there, but I don't know if he's an easy cut or something like that. But I have to believe that Jacksonville is going to spend a lot of their incoming draft capital on offense. They may even spend a lot of their free agent dollars on the offensive side of the ball as well. So you could see possibly, just throwing it out there, Mike Williams sign there for a bunch of money, and then early in the second round they get another wide receiver, to kind of bolster things. And then at that point, yeah, I think Rocky's right. He slides and he's third fiddle, fourth fiddle, depending on if Travis Etienne is now this big pass catching back and a lot of other things. So
FYI, I would guess Jones is there. They can get out, but there's a $5 million dead cap hit. They'd pay $8.7 million to be there. So I mean, they'd save 3.5, but I don't know that it's worth. They're not hurting for cap space either right now. So
No, they're not. So I mean, Marvin Jones is probably there, which is a good idea. And like I said, they can either there's a lot of. I feel like there are a lot of free agent wide receivers coming out this year.
A-Rob back to Jacksonville.
I wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, got T-Law throwing to him.
Wouldn't hate it.
Weren't we saying this last year? Justin Fields will be the best quarterback he ever played with. Yeah, get this man to.
That's true. I mean, saying T-Law threw him to him might not be a good thing, given everything except maybe that last game against the Colts. He was rough to watch a lot of this games.
He looked good in that last game.
He did.
That gives me a lot of hope for my bet against Drew, because I don't know if we've ever said Tua's looked good in any game ever. So at least in the
throws it to Waddle 17 times, he looks fine.
Right, like exactly what you said. He looks fine. You didn't say he looks good. You said he looks fine.
No, fine. Like he is a fine.
See, this is, and people wonder where I get Drew loves Tua. I don't mean he loves him as a player. He loves him. I mean, there's that. But Drew, I don't know if we got your opinion about LaVisca, or you just kind of like.
No, I was gonna say what Rocky said. I'm with Dave. I'm out. I mean, it would have to be he'd have to be an add-in to a deal or something where great, I can take a dart throw here and fine. He'll put the deal over the top, and that's fine. But I'm not going out and making any trades for him specifically at this point. And if somebody wants to offer me something for him, I will probably take pretty much whatever you offer for him if I have him on a roster somewhere.
Yeah, even as a throw-in, I'd be like equating him to like a third. Like it's just sort of like a flyer to add it to the deal, just to spice it up.
That was actually a question I was going to ask. So I'm glad you already answered it. I was going to say, what are you thinking, like a third for LaVisca, like, and see what happens. I mean, I wouldn't mind actually doing that, just because with a third round pick,
Yeah, I don't really care about I do wonder if someone's still holding on to LaVisca, are they going to give him up for a third, or they want to see what happens with the new coaching staff? So
I think LaVisca is like one of those guys where you're either really still in on him, or you're just so frustrated you just want to get out. Like, I don't think there's a lot of in between on Visca.
Yeah. And I was really never in to begin. I mean, not that I wasn't really out either. It was more just sort of a wait and see. I knew he had, this potential to be maybe a Swiss Army knife kind of guy, and I wanted to see how it played out. And it's not played out well.
No, no, it's not happened yet.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny. We always use that term, Swiss Army knife. Oh, this guy can be a Swiss Army knife. This guy can be a Swiss Army knife. And like, who was the last like Swiss Army knife that we were actually like excited about? Like Darren Sproles? Like, who was the last real Swiss Army knife that were like?
You could argue Debo's a bit of a Swiss Army knife.
Patterson this year.
I feel like Debo was.
I've heard comparisons to like he's what we wanted Percy Harvin to be, and Percy Harvin was a Swiss Army knife. So,
but I feel like Debo was just like kind of thrown into the situation. It was like, okay, Raheem Mostert is hurt, Elijah Mitchell is hurt, Trey Sermon sucks out loud. Like, who?
Yeah, he didn't necessarily come into the league with the Swiss Army knife,
right?
Label. Yeah.
Like Shanahan looked around and he was like. He's like that John Travolta from Pulp Fiction. He's like, I don't have anything around here. What, Debo? Come here. All right, I'm going to teach you how to run some end arounds and some sweeps, because we got nothing else going on.
Debo was on a lot of championship teams this year.
Oh yeah,
a lot of them.
Oh yeah. Oh, and by the way, this was a great little refrain on Twitter today. Stop looking for the next Debo. Debo is just one of those dudes.
Yeah,
that's different.
There it is, Dave.
All right. Apparently, Wandale is already Debo. We got it. We're there. Jalen Hurts is Josh Allen, and Wandale is Debo. And we
got our show title.
We have enriched lives today because we have figured all of this stuff out. No complicated formulas needed. We did it. But yeah, like that's what I was thinking. Like and it's funny because there's like one or two guys in every year's draft that were like, they're a Swiss Army knife. They can do
Well,
a little
like
bit
you
of
said, I mean, Patterson came into the league with that. It only took him 10 years to hit, but
right. So you just keep Visca. You only 7 more years
yeah, in
now, and then
2030, he's going to be golden.
man, we're gonna be taking that to the bank, ladies and gentlemen. But all right, that's it for us. So um I want to thank you, Rocky, for coming on. Appreciate you. It's always so much fun. I mean, we could do this for another hour, but we all got places to be. My place is in bed sleeping. But appreciate you. Just let the people know one more time where they can find you, because if you're not following Rocky and you're not listening to Rocky on the 72 podcast that he's a part of, you're really missing out. So just let them know.
Yeah, at Dynasty FF Addict on Twitter. Again, just all over the DAP network, Trade Addicts, Junkies. Listen there. I'm not on every week on Junkies. I'm actually not going to be on this week, but I made fun of them earlier. But my great co-host, Scott Sidlow and Andrew Hall, go follow them. And they got a great show tomorrow. I'm not going to be on, but they got Bob Harris of Fantasy Football Diehards is going to be one of our guests tomorrow. And we tweeted it out there that we do have a pretty fire lineup coming up, like you mentioned. So Heath Cummings is part of it. So looking forward to that. And Dynasty Game Night as well. I'll be on the next episode whenever Russ finally playing. Actually, I've been hosting most of them, but I'll be playing on the next episode. So whenever Russ finally edits it and gets it out, so keep listening there. I'll probably be hosting another one soon too.
Yeah, and like I said, make sure you're following Rocky. We had Scott and Andrew on last week, so I know that Junkies is going to be a lot of fun. I retweeted the Junkies tweet with the lineup because I looked at the lineup and I was like, oh damn, like I want to either see or listen to all of these. So you have a lot of just heavy hitters in this thing. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I thank you, Rocky, but I want to thank everybody in the chat, man. Chat was so much fun today. Dave, it was pretty. We pretty much had an all Canada lineup. We had Toronto Dave, we had Lindsey Kennedy, we had Steve Dennis. I mean,
and all of them perpetuating your lies, Josh.
Listen, I don't speak lies. Everything
me
here
saying
is all true.
Josh Allen.
Dave had lights flickering in his house. Drew, I thought I was going to lose him. I thought he was going to.
Good thing I'm a doctor and perform CPR on myself.
I thought he was going to pass out after Jalen Hurts equals Josh Allen. I was like, whoa. I was like, Drew, are you okay? I had 911 on standby. I was going to be like, listen, my friend has passed out and he needs
tight here.
Immediate medical attention. But I want to thank all you guys, everyone else that was in the chat, everyone else that was watching. Remember, if you're watching this live right now, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the bell, because you don't only get us, you get the Junkies. So it's Rocky, Scott, Andrew, some combination. We've already just highlighted some of the great guests they're going to have. Find the Junkies tweet if you want to see kind of the lineup they put out. I retweeted it as well. So it's out there. It's in the universe. Go find that, because that was a lot of fun. If you're listening to us in podcast form, thank you so much. We're pretty much at an hour and a half right now. That's 90 minutes. You could literally be doing anything else. Mowing a lawn, working, hanging out with friends, having a beer, and you've decided to listen to us. So that's appreciated. If you just randomly stumbled on us, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave a rate and review, because there's some kind of formula that helps us be seen by more people if you do those things. So I would appreciate it. Drew would appreciate it. Rocky has left a rate and review. It was a good one. I was actually looking at rate and reviews today just to see if we got any new ones. So, hey, listen, even if you think we suck, write that down. Trust me, we got a 1-star. that guy said, I sucked. And I said, I appreciate that. So do that. That would be, we would really be happy if you guys did that. And Drew, we're out of here, brother.
Late.